What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Samurai Radio Sports Network. And oh, how I have come prepared for this video. And you see it by the title. Terrell Owens is a no-brainer Hall of Famer. And I say this because if you want to break it down, a lot of people have been getting, oh, should T.O. be in the Hall of Fame? T.O. this, T.O. that. He was a distraction to his team. He never helped. All right, let's get into the T.O. stuff real quick. So, in terms of Terrell Owens, he is second in yards and third in touchdowns all time. The only person ahead of him in yards is Jerry Rice. The person behind him in touchdowns is Randy Moss. And Randy Moss is going to have the same issue that T.O. is having in terms of getting into the Hall of Fame. A guy who's eighth on that list, who got in last year, Marvin Harrison, he's eighth. T.O. is second. And they played just about the same amount of time. Marvin Harrison from 1996, 2008, and T.O. from 1996 until 2010. And T.O. had a better career by far. Then you go into what do you define as a Hall of Famer? Now, I've watched many different videos from Hall of Famers themselves who have been talking about it, who have been asked about it. And of course, you know, the media, because you're always going to get questions from the media. And I thought of something very interesting that Shannon Sharpe said on Disputed, and that he said him and a couple Hall of Famers agree on, which I thought was very interesting, is that if Terrell Owens does not get into the Hall of Fame, that there should be no Hall of Fame. And it makes a lot of sense, because Brett Favre last year, it was basically known that Favre was going to get pushed through. And Brett Favre and T.O. basically had just about the same stats in terms of their production on a team, which sounds crazy, but it's true. I mean, it was a no-brainer for a lot of people to put Favre in, but T.O. has two more all-pro teams than Mr. Brett Favre does, on top of the fact that Brett Favre not only had his own issues off the field with drug issues, he also had an issue with, I believe, inappropriately touching a staff member. Then he had issues with holding the freaking Green Bay Packers hostage for 3 years straight and then refusing to mentor Aaron Rodgers. So there's several things that there's just several issues there. Way too many issues there. And it's stupid. It makes no sense to me. So Brett Favre was in there last year. Well, if you want to look at stats and you want to be a stats guy, and to be perfectly honest, I don't really want to be a stats guy. I kind of look at it as what impact you have on the field in general. And right now, if you look at stats, let's go to the QB stats. There are some guys here. So if you go top 10, you have Ben Roethlisberger, Frank Tarkenton, Eli Manning, Warren Moon, John Elway, Dan Marino, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Brett Favre, and Peyton Manning. Now, there are two names on that list that you say no doubt Hall of Famers when they are eligible, because we all know Peyton's going to get in there anyways. Once he's eligible, he'll be a first ballot. Is Drew Brees and Tom Brady. Obviously, it's going to happen. Same thing with Peyton Manning. A lot of people say the same thing with Ben Roethlisberger. Now, why can't you argue that for Eli Manning? Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls. He beat the undefeated New England Patriots, and he was the first team to go 7-9 and win the Super Bowl under Tom Coughlin. He has 48,214 passing yards. So why would Eli Manning also be a lock in terms of who you think is a Hall of Famer? Also there, 2 steps behind, is Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers might not be considered a Hall of Famer to a lot of people, but once again, you think of impact. He impacted the San Diego Chargers pretty well. They haven't won a Super Bowl, unlike Roethlisberger and Eli Manning. Both of them came off of the same draft. But when you really think about it, they've affected their team in one way or another. So why wouldn't they be Hall of Famers? And then you want to look at stats. A lot of people had Joe Montana, first ballot Hall of Famer. He got in 2000. He threw for 40,000 yards. Drew Brees is at 66,111. Different era, of course. Don't get me wrong here. This is definitely a different era. All right. They say Aaron Rodgers is a guaranteed Hall of Famer once he's eligible. 36,000 passing yards. Jim Kelly got into the Hall of Fame. Aaron Rodgers has 1,000 more yards than him. So if you want to talk about stats, ignoring time periods, just talking about stats, then there are a lot of players that should be in the Hall of Fame and some who shouldn't. But if you talk about impact, Terrell Owens had 15,934 yards, 1,078 receptions, 14.8 average per catch, 72.8 yards per game. His longest was a 98-yard touchdown. He had 153 TDs, 237 catches that were longer than 20 yards, 64 of which that were longer than 40, 742 first downs, and only 10 fumbles. He played from 1996 to 2010. And right now, he can still say that he can play in the NFL. He still believes that he can play at age 43. And he played in 219 games. One year, he played in only 7 games, had 47 receptions for 763 yards. He had 109 yards a game and 6 touchdowns in 2005. Only played in 7 games. A lot of people say that Terrell Owens broke up his teams, made fun of his quarterbacks, blew up teams in general. But at the same time, you could argue for many other players. And there are a lot of people that have issues with, like I mentioned before, which is Brett Favre, and Chris Carter, how he had his off-the-field issues. But Terrell Owens didn't really have off-the-field issues. He most of the time had issues that dealt with football. But he's right there. 3rd all-time in touchdowns. 2nd all-time in receiving. And when you think of wide receivers in the NFL, a lot of people come to mind. They say Jerry Rice, Marvin Harrison. If you really want to ask the people who we all know as in, who is more modern era, I guess, a lot of people think of Andre Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Steve Smith, Tony Gonzalez, even though he was a tight end. And, of course, you have Chad Johnson, and then you have Michael Irvin with the guys in the past. And you obviously can't say any of that without T.O. His stats back it up. If you want to ask about impact on the field, Jeff Garcia, 50 of his touchdowns went to T.O. Just thinking about that alone. And it's, once again, a lot of people can argue. In terms of me, as most of you guys know, my second favorite team are the New York Giants. Number 1 is the Miami Dolphins, ride or die. But I've always been the type of person to think that Eli Manning is elite, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Dude is 8th in passing yards all time. And some people can argue that he's not worthy of the Hall of Fame. He has more passing yards than Y.A. Tittle, who played 17 seasons, 7 Pro Bowls, was for all NFL teams. But he has more passing yards. He has more Super Bowls. Once again, we're playing in a different era. Don't get started with this, but it's different era stuff. I understand that. Different eras. But then, wouldn't you want to also consider the different era then and what it was now, and just think about what you can do in that time? A lot of people argue that Chad Ochocinco isn't a Hall of Famer. I personally believe that Chad Ochocinco is a Hall of Famer, but that's a whole other story. But they look at T.O., they look at the Star, they look at the 49ers, the Cowboys, the freaking Eagles, and then he goes and he plays with the Cincinnati Bengals, then he goes to the Allen Wranglers, and then he goes to the Seahawks. Then he says he can make a comeback. And everyone just sees all these off-the-field issues is what they say, but it's not. They're on-the-field issues. And T.O. is T.O. He is the man. Like, when you think of 3 wide receivers right now on the top of your head that you've been able to see play as people who are around my age, think of Randy Moss, you think of T.O. If you really want to be perfectly blunt with you. And then when you think of all time, in my mind, I think Jerry Rice, T.O., Randy Moss. That's what I feel and think are the all-time receivers. I mean, look at Michael Irvin. He had a whole bunch of off the field demons that were absolutely insane. Hall of Famer. So why can't we say the same for T.O. when he is second in receiving yards and third in touchdowns all time? And we have this whole thing of, but it's Terrell Owens. I mean, get your popcorn ready. The Dallas Star, Donovan McNabb. That shouldn't matter. As a Dolphin fan, as a Giants fan, as a fan of the NFL, doesn't matter if you dislike the Cowboys, the Niners, the Eagles, the Bengals, the Seahawks. Any team that T.O. played on was good. He played in the Super Bowl against the Patriots with a broken fucking leg, for crying out loud. Like, and he was an impact on that game. Doctors for the Patriots told him that there was no way in hell that T.O. was able to play that game. There was no way in hell he was going to play. Dude played with a broken fucking leg in the Super Bowl because of that much passion. You have players, and most notably Chad Ochocinco, who said that they see the media of T.O. and you see him at practice, you see how he plays, and you go up to him and you think, man, like, I was completely wrong. And it's true. Terrell Owens is a Hall of Famer, and he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. And if he doesn't get in this year, then there's an issue. Let's be honest here. Hope you guys did very much enjoy this video. More of a rant. I was seeing all this stuff about Terrell Owens, and it was kind of getting me angry because although I love his off-the-field antics, or not really off-the-field antics, just the antics he has in general, I think T.O. was an exceptional, amazing, probably one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in NFL history. And I think that there's no way that you can. And once again, same thing. Actually, they were saying, Jason Whitlock said that it doesn't matter. It shouldn't be. There's no way you can talk about the NFL without T.O. There's no way you can talk about the NFL without T.O. But I hope you guys did very much enjoy. If you have, make sure to subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.